What if I told you that to live a fulfilling and vibrant life, the secret is death? Just the mention of the word death, and I can feel the energy in the room shift. And I can understand. But let me see if I can change your perspective. When I was little, whenever someone in our community passed away, my mum would take us to pay our respects. And I remember, as a 9-year-old girl, sitting on the floor, looking up at the mourners. Different people with different stories and different grief. But one thing in common throughout, always that same clear look of sheer shock, even when the death was expected. And it made me wonder, why are we all so unprepared for something that happens to every single one of us? And what can we do about it? Well, that 9-year-old girl grew up. And as I did, I went to pay my respects to many more families. I learned how to meditate. I wrote books on the subject of death. And I became a life coach. And in that journey, I've come to believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that death doesn't have to be this dark, depressing force. It can actually be our greatest guide, if we let it. And that's the hard part. But here's the truth. Whether we like it or not, death is coming for all of us. So what if we approached death differently? What if death were to become our very own life coach? The one we didn't ask for, but one we all really need. Now, most of us prefer to avoid thinking about death. But why should we think about it? In the end, death will take our loved ones away from us. But what if it could draw us closer to them first? Studies show that reflecting on death can help us to feel more gratitude, and it can improve our connections with others. Thinking about death helps us to focus on what really matters. But you see, contemplating death isn't just about writing your will or deciding what song you want played at your funeral and then locking your wishes away in a box for that fateful day. What I'm suggesting is a regular practice, one that becomes so embedded it changes our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviours, and ultimately our entire experience of life. So how do we take this abstract concept of death as a life coach and turn it into something that positively impacts our daily lives? How do we let the certainty of death enrich our time on Earth without spiralling into a dark hole? Well, we know that momentary sources of inspiration just don't work when it comes to long-term behaviour change. What we need is a toolkit, and I've developed a 5-step, easy to remember, easy to practice plan. It's important to say that this is not a guide for grieving. When death takes someone we love, that loss, it can break us. And everybody's experience and journey with grief is different. But what I am suggesting are 5 practical habits to help us more bravely face the concept of death and to transform our lives as a result. So let's begin. Step 1, TikTok sees the clock. Now we think that we have all the time in the world. We'll get to the important stuff later, like working on our bad habits, developing a few more good ones, exercising more, meditating daily. But the reality is, we don't have unlimited time. And sadly, we have so many examples of people whose lives have been cut short. In 2014, Tim Urban introduced the concept of life in weeks. It's a simple chart with 4,680 squares, and each square represents a single week in a person's 90-year lifespan. When I plotted my life in weeks, the big life moments really jumped out at me. The week I started here at Cambridge University, the weeks each of my daughters were born, the week my beloved grandfather passed away. But what I also noticed was just how many squares were unlabelled and unmemorable. And it made me realise how many weeks had passed me by without me being fully present in them. So how many squares have you filled? And what will you do with the ones you have left, if you're lucky enough to make it to 90? Seeing our lives laid out like this is a bit like having our life coach reminding us, you don't have all the time in the world. Get a move on. Time's ticking. So now let's take this presence of time and channel it into action. Step 2, from to-do list to to-die list. To-do lists. Now we're all too familiar with these. Grocery shopping, dentist appointment, emailing that person back. But what I'm suggesting is something different. Start a to-die list. A to-die list is everything you want to do before you leave this world. But here's the twist. It's not your typical bucket list of skydiving or seeing the northern lights. This is about those small daily choices that help make life feel more meaningful and complete. Perhaps it's reconnecting with an old friend you've lost touch with. Maybe it's putting your phone away at meal times. It might be as simple as making time for a quiet, unrushed morning coffee. Your to-die list is your roadmap to a fuller life. So let's say you've written your to-die list. Now, how do you embed it into your everyday life? Step 3, Dear Death Diary. Now, I know the name sounds a bit grim, and I'm not suggesting that you stare into the void and ponder your mortality for hours on end. It's just a simple moment of reflection. Here's how it works. Every morning, before you launch into your day, take a moment and ask yourself one simple question. What if today were my last day? And then ask it again, not in that abstract, intellectualized, I just saw it on Instagram kind of way, but really, what if today were actually my last one? What would you want to do? How would you want to feel? How would you want to make those dearest to you feel? I know it might sound like a morbid practice, but I assure you, it's powerful. All of a sudden, that argument you had with your partner doesn't seem so important anymore. The extra hour you were going to spend at work, maybe not worth missing the family dinner for. Your Dear Death Diary can help you prioritize what matters to you every single day. Now, I've also learned a lot about death from other cultures, and step 4 is inspired by the Swedish tradition of dostadning, or death cleaning. And this is where people declutter their lives long before they actually pass away. And it's not just about cleansing your closet. This is about emotional and mental decluttering too. So ask yourself, what fears am I holding on to? What regrets are weighing me down? What would I like to keep? And what do I want to let go of? Can you imagine if we regularly cleared out the emotional baggage that we've accumulated, what lighter and freer lives we might lead? And it's often when we declutter, we see what was hidden in plain sight. And this leads me to my 5th and final step, embrace the cycle. Death is everywhere. It's all around us. And the best example is in nature. Just as the autumn leaves fall to make way for new growth in spring, death and life form part of an unending cycle. So next time you go out for a walk, take notice and you will see what was right in front of you the whole time. The presence of death in the beauty all around us. When we introduce death as a natural part of life, it becomes as accepted as day turning into night. And we need to start practicing this from a much younger age. It's why I co-wrote a children's book on this very topic, because I want to break the taboo of talking to our children about death and loss. Our book, The Little Wave and Other Stories, uses the power of storytelling to help children harness their imagination in the face of death and loss. And it invites their grown-ups to reignite that same skill that many of us left in childhood. So now we have our 5-step toolkit. And to recap, step 1 helps us to fully grasp the limited time that we have. Step 2 encourages us to make small daily choices towards living a more fulfilled life. Step 3 reminds us to prioritize every single day. Step 4 reinforces the importance of decluttering physically, mentally, and emotionally. And step 5 urges us to see death as part of an unending cycle. So when we follow these 5 steps, and when we invite death to become our life coach, we shift our perspective enough to fully see the magic of the universe. And death is part of that magic. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson beautifully explains how our bodies are made of stardust, forged in the explosions of ancient stars. When we die, the elements that once formed our bodies return to the universe, preserving the continuum of matter and energy. This isn't just poetic, it's scientific. Death isn't a full stop, it's a continuation in the cycle of life. Now, personally, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that death is just a temporary separation until we meet again. Maybe you also believe in reincarnation, or in heaven, or perhaps you believe we return to the earth after we die. I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but whether your perspective is shaped by science or spirituality, the essence of what we know about death is the same. Death isn't an end, it's a transformation. So death just might be the toughest life coach you'll ever have, but it's also the most honest. It reminds us that our time is limited, that we need to focus on what really matters, and that we should live life fully whilst we still can. So next time you're tempted to push death to the back of your mind, remember, it's not here to ruin your day. It's here to help you make the most of it. So check in with your life coach today and leave no square of your life's chart unfulfilled. Thank you.